Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I thought I'd make a short video giving you some ideas of how I honed my skills in soft pastel over the years. And I hope that some of these tips that I'm going to give you today will help you progress from whatever stage you're at on your art journey. I hope that you enjoy this and that you find it helpful. Please do subscribe here on YouTube if you'd like to see more, and also consider joining me over on Patreon, where you'll get access to my full library of real-time tutorials and lots more. But I hope that you enjoy this. I'm going to talk about two paintings that I did roughly 14 years apart from each other. One of them being this piece which I've just finished. And if you're interested in painting this tiger along with me, I've got this full length tutorial series now on my Patreon channel where you can paint along absolutely every mark along with me. So I'm going to talk about this piece and also this older piece from 2008. So I painted this other first tiger when I was 23. By no means a beginner. I was already taking portrait commissions and trying to work full-time as an artist at this stage. So this is still what I would class pretty good. But I had many struggles while I was creating it, and looking back now I can see many things that I could have done differently. And that is the beauty of critique, either by someone else or by yourself years later when you can look at your own work objectively. So that's what I'm going to do with these two tigers. I'm going to take a close look at both of them, try and figure out what I was doing differently back then and how I have made improvements. It's often a lot easier to see the improvements needed in the work of an absolute beginner. But it does get a bit more tricky when you get to a certain point where you're pretty good, but you're not sure how to take it to the next level. So let's look closely at the first tiger from 2008. I'm already using a good pastel paper, in this case velour. That alone transformed my work since my earlier styles, just discovering velour paper, a good pastel surface. The first big difference between the two images though starts with the photo reference. I did actually take both of these images, but the first one was at a zoo many years ago. I had an old camera, it was very dull lighting, the fence was very dense in front of the animal, obscuring him, and back then in my desperation to find something useful in my photographs, I went on and painted it. I don't think I did too badly either, considering how bad the reference image is. But fast forward a few years and the importance I place in photo reference being good enough has increased. I will visit a place several times to get the shot. It takes a lot to make me want to paint dull grey lighting, but shine some sunlight on a subject matter and I'm sold. So that's the first thing really, my quality control is much higher than it was back then. And perhaps even the quality of my photography skills, the quality of my equipment, my levels of perseverance, maybe all of the above contribute to that. But either way, I'm really fussy these days as to what image I'm going to devote all of my time and effort to. And I just don't think that now I would bother painting this first photo reference. The other main thing that differs between these two images is my general understanding of colour. Even though the earlier tiger is a more dull image, I kept the colours very flat. Even in dull lighting, there would be complementary colours in the lighter tints. I think at this point I'm still relying heavily on white to make things lighter. Come forward to now though, and I use so much colour in my work these days. There is more colour in this sunlit reference of course, but I would not have known to add blues and other colours to depict the white areas in shadow. So colour can unlock many new tricks in your art. It took me a long time before colour clicked, and I was already good at drawing, I was already good at tonal value, I was already working as a professional artist and selling my work, but colour, when it eventually came, transformed my paintings. But I have several videos here on YouTube all about colour theory and how to apply it in your work. I highly recommend that you go and check out some information about colour theory if that's something that you're struggling with, as just adding in some of the very basic colour theory ideas will be transformative in your paintings. So what else has improved? Well, I would say my overall mark making used to describe the texture of the fur. It's quite good in the early one. The direction and softness of the fur is pretty good. The bleeding edges from all of the stripes, etc. look pretty good. But there is just something very neat or domesticated about the fur. Up close, these animals are enormous, and it makes the smallest marks on the face really small. All my marks here look a little bit chunky or big. Basically, I just didn't spend long enough building up lots of layers of colour, making the marks smaller as I go. Something that I spend a long time on now. And in general, I make more expressive marks now. When the hair needs to be curved, I pay more attention. And I think that that naturally happens over time. Your skills with the actual mark making will improve with practice and repetition. So what else is different since then? Well, the backgrounds don't actually look too dissimilar, with out of focus, distant colour and something in the foreground. But I remember approaching the dry grass in this first one apprehensively. I hated painting background elements. Whereas nowadays, I will attempt anything. I mean, if I'm honest, I'm not in love with the rocks in my later tiger piece, but these days I will just go for it, and most of the time it works out. But basically, my background in this earlier painting isn't bad. It was my early attempts at creating depth. I just hadn't discovered how much I needed colour to help me achieve what I was going for, and how much time and effort I should commit to creating a good background. The last thing that I'll mention that's different in my later work is the paper that I used. This time I used pastel matte paper, another surface that I'm loving these days. It's not necessarily better than velour or than other coated papers that are available. It's just very different, and it's quite unique to work on. You can achieve a huge amount of detail on this paper, and I think that's why many of us are favouring it. So even just experimenting on different papers to see which one suits what you're trying to achieve, you'll see a huge leap in your progression in your art. One of the perks of making my tutorials is that I get to interact with and see lots of artists progress from whatever stage of their journey they're at. I love sharing these tips and techniques, and I hope that they save you some time on your progression and give you some idea on how you can make improvements in your art. I hope that you enjoyed this short video and that you'll consider subscribing to me here on YouTube and showing my channel some support. Also, don't forget to check out my full library of tutorials which are featured on my Patreon channel. There's so much to choose from over there now. I've been working solidly at Patreon for 4 years, and thanks to all of the support there from my patrons, I've been able to upgrade my equipment and just generally improve my content making abilities. So thanks very much to everyone who has supported me on Patreon this far, and I hope that you'll consider checking out my library there and seeing if there's anything more that tickles your fancy that you can learn from me. But thanks very much for watching here, And until next time, happy pasteling.